I never imagined that one work trip could shatter the fragile life I had built with Carla, my wife of 2 years, and leave me questioning every promise we ever made to each other. My name is Jack, and from the moment I met Carla in high school, I believed in the strength of our bond. We reconnected years later, fell in love, and created a life together that I thought was unbreakable. But about 7 months ago, shortly after Carla returned from her company's annual retreat, a trip that used to fill her with energy and laughter, something in her shifted. That change hit me like a tidal wave the very day she walked through our front door. Her eyes distant and her smile subdued, as if the light inside her had dimmed considerably. I remember the moment vividly. We were sitting in our modest living room, the evening sun casting long shadows across the floor, when I casually asked, "Carla, how was your trip?" Instead of her usual enthusiastic response filled with funny anecdotes about co-workers and memorable adventures, she just shook her head and mumbled, "It was fine," dismissing my concern as if it were nothing more than post-trip fatigue. I tried not to worry at first, thinking that maybe she was simply exhausted. But as days turned into weeks, her behavior grew increasingly erratic. In the beginning, it was the little things, our weekly date nights, which had always been our sanctuary away from the pressures of work and life, started disappearing. One week, she would cancel at the last minute with an excuse about being overwhelmed by work. The next, she would be vague about having something important to take care of. I felt a growing void where our connection used to be, and the silence that followed her return home was deafening. Her mood swings became more pronounced. One moment, she was cheerful and engaging. The next, she would slip into a brooding silence, leaving me to wonder if I had somehow lost her. I noticed that even the simplest conversations turned into arguments over trivial matters. A comment I once made to tease her about a funny incident would now be met with a storm of anger and hurt that left both of us speechless. As time went on, Carla began isolating herself. I would come home to find her already engrossed in work, barely glancing up from her phone, and when I tried to engage her in conversation about our day or our future, she would offer curt replies and quickly change the subject. I missed the Carla who used to laugh with me over silly jokes and share dreams of adventures we would embark on together. Instead, I was left with a wife who seemed to live in a different world, a world where our marriage was no longer the center of her existence. The change was subtle at first, like a slow fading of color in a once vibrant painting, but soon it became impossible to ignore. My growing concern led me to gently confront her. One chilly evening, after our daughter Hazel, our 8-year-old ray of innocent joy, had been tucked into bed, I sat with Carla in our dimly lit kitchen, the air heavy with unspoken words. "Carla, I need you to be honest with me," I said softly, my voice trembling with vulnerability. "I feel like you're slipping away, and I don't understand why. Are you seeing someone else? Is there something you're not telling me?" Her eyes, which had once sparkled with warmth, now flickered with a guarded defiance. She hesitated for what felt like an eternity before answering in a tone that was both detached and pained. "Jack, there's no one else. I feel like I've been trying to find a part of myself that I lost somewhere along the way." I pressed further. "What do you mean by that? What part of you is missing?" She sighed heavily and looked away, as if the answer was too painful to confront. "I don't know, Jack," she admitted quietly. "Ever since I got back from the trip, I haven't felt like me. I feel distant, and sometimes I feel like I need to break free, to explore who I am without the constraints of our marriage." Her words struck me like a blow, and a gnawing fear began to take root inside me. In the following weeks, things only got worse. Carla started working longer hours and coming home late, often with vague explanations that left me frustrated and alone. I began to notice that she was spending time with people I had never heard of, colleagues, friends from work, and even random strangers from bars. I would hear from mutual friends that she had been seen dancing with men at a downtown club, laughing too freely, acting in ways that were completely out of character. Each report sent waves of humiliation and betrayal crashing over me. I tried to dismiss these rumors as nothing more than wild gossip, but the consistency of the stories made it impossible to ignore. My anxiety turned into sleepless nights filled with doubt and heartbreak. I recalled the early days of our relationship, the moments when Carla had promised that nothing could come between us, and I wondered how we had arrived at this painful juncture. I even suggested that we attend marriage counseling together, hoping that a professional could help us bridge the widening gap between us. To my astonishment, Carla declined. She insisted that she preferred to continue her therapy independently, that she needed to focus on herself before we could work on our marriage. While I respected her need for personal space, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. One particularly bitter night, after a long day of unanswered phone calls and silent dinners, I gathered the courage to confront her directly about the whispers I had heard from friends. "Carla, I've heard things," I said, my voice wavering as I tried to maintain a calm facade. "People are saying they've seen you out at bars, dancing with strangers, that you're not being honest with me about what's going on." She stared at me, her eyes narrowing in a mixture of anger and hurt. "Jack, you always overthink everything," she snapped, dismissing my concerns with a wave of her hand. "I'm just out having fun with friends. It doesn't mean I'm cheating or that I don't love you." Her tone was icy, and I could feel my heart break a little more with every word. I pleaded, "Carla, I need to know the truth. I need you to tell me what's happening in your life because I feel like you're not the same person I married." She hesitated, her gaze drifting away as if she were searching for the right words. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "It's not about you, Jack. It's about me. I feel trapped, like our marriage has become this routine that suffocates me. I met someone who helped me see that I can be more, that I can have a life outside of what we built together." The revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. "Who?" I managed to choke out. It's Elle," she confessed, her eyes filled with a mixture of defiance and sorrow. "Elle is someone from my past, an old friend who reconnected with me after the trip. He convinced me that I was too predictable, that I needed to break free to rediscover who I truly am." I sat there, numb, as the reality of her betrayal sank in. The Carla I once knew, the woman who had been my partner, my confidant, my love, was slipping away before my eyes, replaced by someone who sought validation in the arms of another. The days that followed were a blur of anger, confusion, and heartbreak. I watched as Carla drifted further into her new lifestyle, canceling our date nights without warning, spending endless hours out with friends and strangers, and even neglecting her responsibilities at home. I found myself alone in a house that had once been filled with laughter and warmth. I tried to reach out, to mend the cracks that were forming between us, but every attempt was met with cold indifference or outright hostility. One night, after returning home from a long day at work, I discovered that she had left a series of texts on social media accusing me of being controlling and suffocating, that I was the reason she felt trapped. The words stung more deeply than any physical blow, and I was left questioning everything about our marriage. Desperate and in pain, I confronted her one last time in the quiet of our living room. The tension was palpable as I looked into her eyes and said, Carla, I can't do this anymore. I can't be with someone who doesn't see me, who doesn't value what we built together. I feel like I'm losing you to a world that doesn't even include me." She stared back at me, her face a mask of conflict and regret. After a long, heavy silence, she spoke. "Jack, I never wanted to hurt you. I thought that by exploring these new possibilities, I could find a part of me that I've lost. But I see now that in doing so, I've only pushed you away." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I thought I saw the Carla I once knew, vulnerable and remorseful. But then she continued, "Maybe we need to try something different. Maybe an open marriage could help us, allow us both to be free and rediscover what we truly want." I felt as if the ground had been pulled from beneath me. "An open marriage?" I repeated, my voice barely audible. "I don't want to share you, Carla. I don't want to be with someone who seeks excitement outside our marriage." She looked away, tears welling up, and said, "I don't know what I want anymore, Jack. I just know that I can't live like this." I realized then that our love, once so strong and sure, had withered away under the weight of unmet needs and broken promises. After many agonizing days of soul-searching and painful conversations, I made the heart-wrenching decision to file for divorce. I told Carla that I couldn't continue in a marriage where I was left alone, where I was forced to compete with strangers for a sliver of her attention. The conversation was brutal. She accused me of being too rigid, of not understanding her need for freedom, and even blamed me for pushing her to seek validation elsewhere. In a moment of raw, unfiltered anger, she threw objects around the room and even scratched my car before storming out. I documented every moment, knowing that this painful end would be a turning point in my life. In the aftermath, as I sat alone in our quiet apartment, I felt a mix of sorrow, relief, and a deep, gnawing emptiness. Our marriage had been a tapestry of shared dreams and quiet companionship, now torn apart by betrayal and miscommunication. I spent countless nights reflecting on what had gone wrong, on how I had tried so hard to be the pillar of strength and understanding while ignoring the warning signs that Carla was slipping away. I realized that in my desperate need to keep our family together, I had sacrificed my own voice and let her actions go unchecked until it was too late. Now, as I stand on the precipice of a future defined by painful lessons and hard-won wisdom, I understand that sometimes love is not enough. True intimacy requires honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to face one's own shortcomings. I have learned that while I can never change the past, I can choose to rebuild my life on a foundation of self-respect and authenticity. Carla's betrayal, influenced by the destructive counsel of Elle, a so-called relationship expert from her past, has shown me that the path to happiness is not through shared adventures with strangers or the empty promises of an open marriage, but through a commitment to being true to oneself. I share my story with a heavy heart, not to seek pity or to cast blame, but to remind anyone who has ever been hurt by betrayal that healing is possible. My journey has been long and painful, filled with moments of anger, sorrow, and relentless self-doubt. Yet I have emerged with a clearer understanding of what I deserve in love and life. I invite you, dear reader, to reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever felt that the person you loved was slipping away, replaced by a stranger who sought validation in all the wrong places? What did you do when the truth came crashing down around you? Share your thoughts, your stories, and your insights, for in our shared pain lies the power to rebuild, to grow, and to redefine what it means to love and be loved. As for Carla, I hope that someday she finds the clarity and genuine healing that she so desperately sought through the influence of L. I wish that she comes to understand that true happiness cannot be found by chasing after fleeting thrills or by abandoning the very foundations of trust and commitment. I now know that I deserve a partner who is fully present, a person who cherishes our memories and builds a future with unwavering honesty. My marriage may have ended in heartbreak and betrayal, but I hold on to the hope that both Carla and I can eventually find the happiness we were once too afraid to pursue. As I stand on the threshold of a new beginning, I feel a bittersweet mixture of relief and lingering sorrow. Relief that I have finally reclaimed my life and broken free from the cycle of betrayal, and sorrow for the pain that Carla has inflicted on both of us. The woman I once loved has become a stranger, a reflection of the destructive influence of someone who promised adventure, but only delivered chaos. Now, Carla is left grappling with the consequences of her choices, her world crumbling as the empty promises of an open marriage leave her isolated and regretful. I have learned that true love is built on honesty and mutual respect, and that holding on to a relationship that has lost its foundation only deepens the wounds on both sides. While I carry the scars of our shattered dreams, I choose to see them as markers of my resilience and as the catalyst for a future filled with genuine connection and self-respect. My journey has taught me that sometimes the most courageous act is to let go and rebuild anew. What about you? Have you ever had to make a painful choice to preserve your dignity and happiness? Share your stories of heartbreak and healing, and let's create a space where our collective experiences remind us that every ending, no matter how painful, can be the beginning of something beautiful.